I want to draw your attention to this issue. And I've talked a few times about VAT on private schools, and the UK's independent schools, not the leafy sanctuaries of privilege that they're often caricatured as being by the Treasury and by the current Chancellor, but institutions now facing a threefold squeeze: rising costs, regulatory entanglement, and political scapegoating. And at the heart of this squeeze is Labour's flagship tax policy, the imposition of VAT at 20% on private school fees. Introduced in January, it was designed to level the playing field, but instead it risks levelling schools altogether. The first and most tragic result: schools are shedding bursaries and scholarships at alarming rates. According to the Times, over half of private schools are slashing means-tested bursaries, often rewarded to the very pupils politicians claim to protect, those with exceptional needs or talent who cannot afford the fees. Edinburgh Academy, it suspended all bursaries and scholarships, raised class sizes, and axed cultural posts like language assistants and artists in residence. And this despite the school previously supporting up to 56 pupils a year with financial aid. Austerity now wears a mortarboard. What's more, some schools, especially smaller or rural ones, are closing altogether. Others are merging or axing enrichment activities. Trips, partnerships with state schools, and extracurricular activities are being whittled away. But there's a quieter crisis too, one born not by pupils, but by the staff. The National Education Union, representing 35,000 private school teachers, has sounded the alarm. Many private schools are pushing teachers to work unpaid hours, particularly in boarding schools where the lines between care and exploitation blur. Daniel Kabedi, the NEU's General Secretary, describes the breach of working time regulations so routine it endangers both staff and students. Some teachers are effectively on 24/7 call, required to supervise trips, attend fixtures, respond to late-night emails, or even mop up after a sick child at 3 a.m. And they do this with no overtime pay, no time off in lieu, and contracts so archaic they might as well be written in Latin. In some interviews, schools attempt to opt out of basic employment protections, clauses that are legally void but terrifyingly common. Meanwhile, a legal battle rages. A judicial review heard at the Royal Courts of Justice pits the Independent Schools Council, parents of children with special educational needs, and faith schools against the UK government, and their claim that the VAT policy breaches the rights of children, especially those with complex needs who will be thrust into a collapsing state send system if their schools close or they become unaffordable. The government's defence has been, to be blunt, a shambles. Initially relying on the National Audit Office's report, which called send provision financially unsustainable, ministers are now arguing it should be inadmissible because it contains options. A report for the Department of Education, once welcomed, is now suddenly inconvenient. Parliamentary privilege is being invoked, not to protect MPs, but to shield ministers from embarrassment. It's a legal fig leaf, and a transparent one. And some schools are turning to surreal solutions. Lowman School in Scotland, for example, is now accepting fees in Bitcoin, a marketing gimmick, perhaps, but also a signal of desperation, an attempt to court international students and evade currency fluctuations that could push more parents over the edge. The same school, incidentally, has abandoned the Scottish curriculum in favour of the International Baccalaureate and is attempting to brand itself as a modern global hub, even as the policy climate at home becomes more hostile. Yet, despite the mounting evidence of hardship, job losses, lost scholarships, overworked staff, looming closures, Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson accuses private schools of crying wolf. Well, the court case isn't finished yet. Meanwhile, Treasury figures insist fewer than 0.1% of pupils will actually be affected. Either this is a statistical gaslighting experience or a profound failure to grasp the practical reality. State school places are not evenly distributed. SEND provision is overwhelmed in state schools, and private schools' collapse doesn't happen uniformly. It happens in clusters, leaving families stranded and staff discarded. So what we are witnessing, what is it? A policy of class-based retaliation masquerading as fiscal responsibility, aimed at the poorest and the most vulnerable in the private education sector. The VAT levy may raise 1.8 billion, but at what cost? And will it really raise that money? We risk making private education more elite, not less elite. We risk dismantling support for SEND pupils, and we risk pushing staff beyond their legal and moral limits. If this is reform, it's reform by a wrecking ball. Who benefits?